You're truly representing, and I really appreciate that, you're truly representing the true values of Islam. You're not trying to change anyone's culture, you're not trying to change anyone's point of view. All you're trying to do is just have an honest, truthful discussion, and I really appreciate that.
That's a genius.
So what you're saying is you get your morality from the common denominator of the faiths. Yeah? So you see what's common and that's where you get your morality from. Would you say you get your morality from liberalism as well, or do you rely more on...
Correctly, yes.
Yeah, and we say, look, I'm going to be as skeptical as I absolutely can. There's one thing that you have to accept, and correct me if I'm wrong, and that is that you exist. Yeah? And secondly, would you say that the universe is uniform, regular, and stable? And what I mean by this, how comes this watch is not exploding haphazardly and randomly? Why is this not randomly exploding or floating away or just disappearing? You know how they say in quantum physics, isn't it? That something can just disappear and something can start floating away.
So I would have to disagree. So here is where I'm going to check you up. So the universe is not stable and the universe is not uniform. What was the first thing that you said about the universe?
Uniform, regular, and stable.
So it's not any of them.
You have to assume that there is enough stability in the universe that you are able to reach home without cars randomly floating, without trees randomly floating. You can't do science. Yeah, exactly. So you won't be able to do science at all. You can't live your daily life. So you agree with this point, yeah? Therefore, there needs to be an existence that explains this uniformity, regularity, and stability of nature. Would you agree with that?
Depends what you mean exactly by an existence.
An existence. Yeah, so you find that at the beginning, where you acknowledge that you exist and that there is existence. Yeah? So for that was in premise number one, where you say, I exist, and then you're acknowledging that there is some stability. Yeah? Otherwise, I mean, we can't go an hour without... There's going to be, breaking news happens every hour. There's going to be breaking news every minute. Yeah, Big Ben has disappeared. Oh, it's appeared it's on top of the Statue of Liberty. Therefore, there is an existence that explains that. Okay, great. Now, we now have to deal with that existence. Let's just say I have a glass of water. Yeah? Can you say, logically, I can create, say, a watch, or I can create a sandwich, or your chain from that glass of water?
No, not without other things, no.
So you're saying in order to make something, you need to have those qualities to begin with. Do you agree with that? Okay, great. Would you accept that in your observation of what's around you, there is consciousness, there's awareness of our existence, there is will, and then we agree there is power? Yeah? I'm flexing his muscles a little bit.
I'm not.
I'll see that. So this existence, because there is consciousness, there's will, there's power, it makes sense for that existence to also have consciousness, will, and power. Make sense so far? Okay, great. There cannot be, I'm going to get a bit technical here, feel free to stop me whenever, there cannot be an infinite regress of powers. Just like there cannot be an infinite regress of dependent things. Yeah? I'm going to break the second one down. Dependency. So I rely on something else. Yeah? That something else relies on something else, and then it goes ad infinitum. Yeah? However, my argument is you cannot have an infinite regress of these things. Because if you have an infinite regress, that means one thing on another on another. Yeah, it has to end somewhere, isn't it? And we say, and philosophers also agree as well, that we are dependent. There has to be a necessary being. Yeah, that's the end of that chain. Yes, the end of that chain, the necessary being. And then we now acknowledge that that necessary being has consciousness, has will and power, and there's nothing that came before it. So that necessary being has to be one, has to be independent, has to have consciousness, has to have will. Our pH test for God is Qul huwallahu ahad. Say He is the one. Allahu samad, the everlasting and eternal. He does not beget, nor is He begotten. I.e., He doesn't give birth Himself, and nor is He given birth to, and there is no one like Him. Yeah, this is our pH test for God. Yeah, so as a Muslim, this fulfills our criteria for God. Now, Jennifer, would you think that somebody who's created us would be detached from us, or would you think that there would be some effort being made from the Creator? Which of those two would you say makes more sense? The latter, isn't it? So with regards to the books, the main thing that rationally you would arrive to is this book is the same as it was when it was revealed. Yeah? If it's been changed, if the people that follow the book can't even acknowledge and take on board that, yes, this book is the same book that was at the time of the Prophet, then, why should I accept it? Because it's been changed. And yes,
sorry to interrupt here.
No, go.
Point about it being accessible and understandable to the followers of the faith.
Yeah, 100%. There's a fragment of the Quran which is dated all the way to the time of the Prophet, and that fragment is not in Saudi Arabia, it's not in Iran, it's not in Iraq, it's not in Afghanistan. It's actually in this country, and it's in the University of Birmingham. So the oldest fragment of the Quran is in a non-Muslim country, collected, carbon dated by non-Muslims. Yeah. However, now when you look into the Quran, how has it been preserved? Because the next thing you're going to say is, that was back in the days. They used to write stuff down. And I remember in primary school when we would have to copy stuff down for display purposes. Sometimes if two lines end with the same word, our eyes would skip a line. And sometimes if I write something down and I introduce a mistake, he copies something down, he'll copy my mistake, he'll make a mistake, and then he'll give the manuscript to you, you'll introduce your own mistake, and then over time, so many mistakes will come in. This way of missing words and missing lines because of two words being the same, they're actually called homoutiliton and parablepsis. You might be thinking, okay, but the Quran was copied as well, isn't it? No. Out of all the holy books, Quran is the only one that is memorized cover to cover. You might be thinking, okay, I'm impressed, but I'm not too impressed because maybe you need to do that mind palace that Sherlock Holmes does and you have to really work on it. No. We have kids as young as 6 that have memorized the Quran, and approximately, according to one study, 11 million people on this planet have memorized the Quran. Christians. I've been here for a long time. I put stuff online. Not a single Christian has come and said, we found a Christian that has memorized the Bible. Not one Hindu's come and said, somebody has memorized the Vedas. The third thing and final thing I'm going to leave you with is the Prophet. Yeah, you got all these people making claims. There's one book, you can grab it before you go. It's called Forbidden Prophecies. Yeah, you've got people, the Mayans, the 2012, they said the world was going to end. The I Ching, the Chinese, the Scientologists, and all these guys, notice their prophecies. And then notice when the Prophet Muhammad makes a prophecy. His prophecy is specific. For example, at the time of the Prophet, the Byzantines were losing against the Persians. However, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, no problem. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, within 9 years, the Byzantines will beat the Persians. Now, at that time, they were losing. There was a plague. They were being attacked by the plague. They didn't have the artillery. They were in problems. However, within 9 years, they did beat the Persians. And this can be verified by a non-Muslim at that time, whose transcript we have is called the Chronicles of Theophanes. And the final thing that I'm going to leave you with is how we preserve the sayings of the Prophet through the chains of narration. I can give you something the Prophet said, and I can tell you who narrated from the Prophet, who narrated from him, and who narrated from him. And there's a narration of the Prophet that he said, don't kill women and children. Yeah. So the Prophet narrated this, and Abdullah bin Umar heard it from the Prophet. Nafi heard it from Abdullah bin Umar. Imam Malik heard it from Nafi. And then we can pick it up from their book.
Brother, thank you so much.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Food for thought. Food for thought.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.